morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Skill Bridge meeting. Both Al and Sydney, both of you guys already know who I am, so no need for me to introduce myself. But in case somebody's watching this video in the future, my name is Zor Morales. Went through this program back in July of 2021, graduated from it in December of 2021. So in a couple months, I'll be having my 3-year anniversary of freedom, living in civilian life, and really appreciating civilian life because of the time spent in the military, where you don't have the ability to decide what hours you're going to work and when you're going to travel, all that stuff. But on the civilian side, especially as a realtor, you have the ability to decide your schedule and how your life flows. When I was transitioning out, I was debating between going the standard route for a JO, junior officer, of you go to school, study business, and then after that you get another corporate job at some kind of big business or something. Basically jumping from one chain of command in the military to another chain of command in the civilian world. And looking at that just didn't really seem appealing. Like a lot of things that I wanted to have on the civilian side of freedom of schedule, freedom of income, like how much I want to make is up to me, and how hard or how effective I want to work. And so when I was looking at those two options, um, that was one of the biggest things that helped me decide to go into real estate, which would lead into like an entrepreneurial type of lifestyle and career that weighed heavily in that decision. And so now here we are, working pretty long hours, but I enjoy it, and I get to decide, when I work those hours most of the time. So that's good. But today we'll be talking about the listing edition of pros to know in the real estate business. Before we get started, is there any questions anyone has about? Go ahead, Sydney.
Really quick, when making cold calls, do you recommend leaving voicemails, or are you one of those like, don't bother?
Um, I would say so.
Like, what's the pros and cons to it?
So the pros, someone will hear that and be like, this person isn't just a robot. It's not a scam, because their phone is probably going to say scam likely or
Mhm.
whatever. Because after you call so many people, with the way the like phone algorithms are set up, it'll detect you. Like if you call like 10 people within 30 minutes, like the next call you make, whoever's picking it up, if they don't have your number saved, it'll say like scam likely or something. Now I think there's ways of undoing that, but getting back to your question, um, so pros, they'll like know it wasn't a scam, or seems like it wasn't a scam, especially in the voicemail you say their name. Um, and then cons, you're adding to the amount of time you're spending on each call. So it doesn't seem like a lot, because it's like, oh, it takes like 5 seconds to, hey, give me a call back when you have a chance. See ya. Um, it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but if you're calling like 100 people, that's 5 seconds times 100, 500 seconds. It adds up
Yeah,
to a lot of time.
yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
but at the same time, it could be. I do recommend doing it from time to time, so that you're like ready to say something. Uh,
Okay.
Otherwise, if you're just getting nonstop, no answers, and then like somebody finally answers, and you're like, oh, uh, I wasn't expecting somebody to answer, so I don't know what to say. But if you already have like your canned or like practiced message that you're going to say, then you'll be ready to pivot to whoever answers.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I've been seeing this. I don't know the name of the guy, but I've been seeing some ads for, it's like some NEBQ, some kind of acronym, about like techniques for like better words to use that kind of elevates your position in that conversation. Because if you, and it makes a lot of good points, and I've tried out some of the stuff. But if you like answer, if you call somebody, you're like, hey, just wondering if I could get on your schedule to talk about selling your home or something like that, then that puts you like below them, like you're trying to get on their schedule because they're like, oh, I know you're really busy, but I just want to talk to you. But if it's more like direct, and it sounds rude at first, but like when you think about it, it's really not. It's just like showing them that you're professional, you're confident, that you have something valuable to offer them. Um, it really makes a difference and probably get a lot better results. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, cool. Let me share my screen. Another fantastic presentation created by Gamma. A future topic I'm going to do is like canned messages for texting, for emails, for video messages, because one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing when I was first getting started was just like like I would get a referral, or um, I'd be talking to a potential buyer and wanting to connect them with a lender, and then it would take me like 15 minutes to write like a short text message because I'm like trying to word it just right. But if you have all those messages pre-written up and like saved in your notes in your phone or something, then it'll save you a lot of time because you can just copy paste, change the names, send. And then also like when you're like following up with clients, KV Core is great for that because it has campaigns and all that stuff. Um, but sometimes you might want to, you're like at the airport or somewhere where you don't have immediate access to your computer and all that stuff. And so you just want to do it from your phone. And then I'll make it a lot easier. But that'll be on a future class. So today we're talking about the pros to know in the real estate business. Um, let me just make sure I'm not leaving anybody out of the room. Um, so previously we talked about people to know when you're representing buyers, and so today we're talking about when you're representing sellers. Some of the people are the same, but the primary use for them changes a little bit when you're on the listing side. And so these relationships that you can be building with these professionals, you can do this right now. Like, well, before you're even licensed, you can be reaching out to these folks, having coffee with them, shadowing them. I recommend shadowing them as the main priority. But if it's kind of weird to just reach out to some stranger and ask them if you can shadow them while they're doing like a photo shoot, then maybe you want to invite them out for coffee and pick their brain on the business, and then ask them if you can shadow them when they're doing a job. But yeah, establishing those relationships so that when you're cold calling and you happen to get somebody on the line that's like, oh yeah, I kind of like your style and whatever, and I wouldn't mind having you list my home. And then you go over to their house and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, let's do photos tomorrow, or let's sign the agreement right now. Let's get everything going. And you're like, oh crap, I don't know a photographer, I don't know a title officer, like all that stuff. And then you go reaching out, like you're ready to pivot and make things happen. And you go reaching out to title officers and photographers and everybody else, but you don't get you don't get an answer, or you have to say like, oh yeah, let's talk in a couple days about how I can help you out. And you're like, no, I need right now because I'm ready to list this place ASAP. Um, so yeah, the first person that you'll be encountering as you list a home is the escrow or title officer. And so one of the first things they'll do is preliminary title report. And this might vary from state to state, but for the most part, this is what it will look like. So the preliminary title report will show you any defects that are on the title. So if the person that you're talking to, if they're the one selling it, or if there's liens against the property because of like construction lien or a homeowners association, or a second mortgage, anything like that. And so that'll be critical to have that, because it might be something that the owner doesn't even know about. There might be maybe they had work done on the property and they didn't fully pay the contractor that did the work, and so that contractor put a lien on their home, or kind of like the townhome situation that we dealt with, um, where the previous owner, not even the owner that was selling it, but the previous owner was getting sued by the HOA for not paying their HOA dues. And so that was on the title. And we were representing the buyers in that transaction, but the selling agent was having a lot of trouble with that because of that title defect, even though it really doesn't affect the current owner or the future buyer. People see that and they're like, oh, legal situation going on. Okay, yep, I'm going to avoid this at all costs. But having a good escrow title officer that can provide a solution for how to get rid of something like that on the title, but also inform you about things that might be on there and how to handle them. Some other things that they'll do is they'll give you a seller net sheet, which is just like a breakdown that you can provide to the seller. You just need to get some basic information from the seller, like their mortgage balance, their loan balance, their if they're a non in Hawaii, HARPTA and FERPTA, which is these tax withholdings. FERPTA is nationwide because it's for any seller that is not or that is a foreigner. And then for HARPTA, that's for Hawaii because it's anyone that's not a Hawaii state resident. But those types of things. So any types of fees that might be associated with the selling process, the title officer will give you a breakdown of what the um, bottom line will be like for the seller, so that when you show the seller, okay, here's our basic package where you're going to pay for photos and pre-home inspection and all these things, and we'll be listing for X% at that amount. And then here's the Supreme package, and I'm going to cover everything for you. All the marketing, everything will be coming out of our our paycheck, so you don't have to worry about anything. You just sit back and watch us take care of business. And so they can give you that breakdown, and so they can see the actual numbers instead of just hearing a bunch of fluff about how things are going to be expensive or cheap or whatever. And so they can actually see how much you're putting into it and all that stuff. Alrighty. And then also just along the whole way of the transaction, like as documents start to get signed for transferring ownership, and then when closing day finally comes, just making sure that it's a smooth process, and the title officer is staying in the loop with your seller. Can kind of know in like, will they be available to sign the deed and any other documents? Will we need to arrange for like a digital notary or power of attorney? What kind of power of attorney will we need? Because different lenders have different requirements for what the power of attorney documents need to look like. And so having a knowledgeable, proactive, problem-solving title officer will be really important for that. Because you don't have an awesome listing process, goes into escrow under a week, all cash offer, everything's smooth, and then closing week comes around and the title officer doesn't answer the phone. There's all these issues popping up. You're not able to answer them because it's in their wheelhouse, all that stuff. Next thing, the home inspector. So this is kind of like an optional thing, and it's like something you can offer as an additional service as part of your listing package. And basically, home inspector comes out, points out some things that just like if a home inspector was seeing the house for a buyer, so you can get an idea of things that need to be addressed before going on the market, so that you already know of the items that the buyer might be trying to ask for credits for, and you can fix them ahead of time. Because if there's a leaky pipe and some minor cracks on the outside of the foundation from spalling, you can have those things fixed for $200 by a licensed contractor on your prior to listing. But if you go on the market and then you get under contract with the buyer, and then their inspector comes out and it's like, oh, these cracks in the foundation, they look like they're not that bad, but it could be a much bigger deal. And this leaky pipe, like it could be an indication of other issues, and they make this relatively small issue seem like this huge problem, and then and depending on the city, like there's lots of other variables that can influence your seller's thinking and your thinking, and so then that buyer is like, hey, I want a $10,000 credit for these two items, and it's like, what the heck? I wish I would have had the place inspected before going live, get all these items addressed, and um, and kind of know where you're dealing with, so that you can get save your seller as much money as possible from any of those types of requests. And then it also, like, if if a home inspector for a buyer comes through and um, they have to find a bunch of ridiculous stuff, you can get a second opinion, so that, and if you know of a home inspector that knows what they're doing, um, they can give you that second opinion. Like, hey, buyer, I had my home inspector come out. He said that this thing really isn't as big of a deal as you're making it seem. Um, and yeah, and so the home inspector is another one where you could be a great opportunity to shadow, because as they're walking through and pointing out things, you'll just start to remember all those things to look for. And so then when you're doing showings or checking out a house for the first time for a seller, you'll be able to cue in on those things because you've seen them so many times from shadowing a home inspector. Next, the photographers and the media team. So having a really solid um, cameraman and, or like videographer and photographer, but also the people that support them. And if you find a good one, it'll be like a package deal. They'll come out, they'll do their pictures, their video, their drone footage, and then next time you talk to them is when they send you a link for all the photos and videos that they put together. And they'll put them together nice in like a complete package. So all you got to do is upload the link to your listing, and it's already has the music, transitions, all that stuff. So you don't have to break out your editing skills and put those videos and photos into a reel for Facebook or Instagram. Um, and this is really like the secret sauce, in my opinion, for getting a place sold, because um, I actually just realized I forgot left out staging, but um, photographers and the media team, they can do the digital staging as well, and I kind of think that's what things are going towards, because um, it can be pretty costly to have somebody bring out furniture, for one, and then also a lot of times people are living in the house as they're selling it, and not a lot of stagers want to stage a home with people living there, especially if they have like dogs or cats, because then their stuff will get smelly or dirty. um, and so if you have a really solid media team, they'll be able to do that staging for you and make all the pictures, everything look really good. And then so once you post that stuff on social media or on the MLS listing, then it'll kind of catch fire on its own. But if you have really crappy photos, like if you're just taking photos with your cell phone, even if you have the iPhone 16 or the latest Samsung, people will be able to tell, just because like people that do that every day, they know how to angle it just right, so the lines are how they should be, and what's most visually appealing for the buyers, and so it'll be very obvious that you did the photos yourself. And you could do it yourself over and over again and get good at it, but then you're taking away time from what's your real money making skills of talking to people and getting more clients. Yeah, that's that. Um, then also, just like in the buying side, you need to have a good transaction manager on the selling side as well, to keep your sellers and the buy side up to date with all the deadlines being met, because a lot of documents you'll have to send for digital signature for when you send them, and then also when they're approved by the buyers. And so having somebody staying on top of that is critical, because if you're bogged down having to do that yourself, and while you're trying to generate more clients, you'll really slow down your production. And so you can hire a transaction manager through the services provided by EXP, but there's also lots of third-party companies out there that can do the transaction managing for you. Also, if you have a spouse or a friend that's looking for some extra work, you don't have to be licensed to be a transaction manager. And so they can do a quick class, quick training session on how to do that, and then become a transaction manager and help you out with all that detailed type stuff. Typically, the third-party transaction managers cost about $500 per transaction, and a lot of times, even if the transaction isn't completed, you'll still pay them. So there's that con of that type of thing. But yeah, the pro is definitely, you'll save tons of time, and in the long run, it'll end for the one or two deals a year that don't make it to the finish line where you got to pay anyways. It balances out for all the time you save by having a transaction manager on every transaction. And it on that on the note of like things not working out, like with other situations, like with um, the home inspectors, really all of these professionals, like if you have a working relationship with them, if there's a situation where, like for the escrow officer, you have a seller that's they're either like breaking even on their property, or maybe they're kind of coming out of pocket a little bit to get their property sold. If you have a good relationship with them, they'll be willing to, cut off some of their pay in order to make it a better deal for your clients. If you have that continuous relationship with them, sending them business. Same thing with the home inspectors. If you're out constantly helping them out, sending them business for buyers and for sellers, then they'll give you a discounted rate on pre-home inspections because you're just kind of looking for things that you can fix right away, and it'll be an easy inspection for them. So maybe they give you a better deal on that, and then and same thing for all these people. Uh, Licensed contractors and handymen. Um, so get your your pre-home inspection done or not, or maybe you just walk through the house and you find things that could easily save you a lot of money by fixing them now instead of waiting for the home inspection. So definitely want to use licensed contractors for anything requiring a licensed contractor, because if you have, a handyman replacing a circuit breaker panel, and then the home inspection comes around and they're like, this circuit breaker panel looks a little weird. When was it replaced? And then you're like, oh crap, we replaced it just before listing and it wasn't a licensed contractor. You can get yourself in a really sticky situation with that. There's this little newsletter thing that the association realtor sends out, and it has in the last page, it has like a list of people that get fined for doing bad stuff, and pretty frequently on there I'll see this realtor is being fined $2,000 or $5,000 for using unlicensed contractors to do work. So you may think you're saving, a couple $100 by using a handyman for a job requiring a licensed contractor, but it'll catch up to you eventually if you're doing that. So definitely better to go with licensed contractors who know what they're doing, whose head is on the line. Because if there's something goes wrong with their work, it's their responsibility. Um, so yeah, there's that. Um, Home cleaners, landscapers. So before you have the open houses and showings, all that stuff, you're gonna want to have the house nice and clean. Um, sometimes we've had photo because we've been in such a crunch. We didn't have the house cleaned before photos. Not as big of a deal as when people are physically there, um, because in the photos, a lot of times you can't tell. Obviously, you don't want to like wipe down the windows and stuff, like things that are going to be very obvious if they're not clean, like if you have bird poop and smudges on the windows or something like that, or like dirty mirrors. But um, you definitely want to have it clean before people are physically there, because the moment you walk in the front door, you can smell if it's dirty or clean. And as you're walking around, you can like see dirt on the floor and stuff like that, little handprints on the walls. So all those things make a huge difference because um, if you do it right, you want to appeal to all the senses. So first walk in, you have a good smell, and then you also, if it's a, like open house, or if the seller just wants to leave music on all day, you can have music playing. So then that also sets the mood for the hearing sense. And then maybe you have a little snack on the counter to hit the taste sense. A lot of times people will put out bottles of water, or just a little like, Slim Jim or granola bar or whatever. Or if it's open house, you can have some fresh donuts or freshly baked cookies, all that stuff. Um, but yeah, you want to really appeal to all the senses, and having a clean home definitely helps with the smell and sight portion of that. And that is about it. So yeah, definitely want to start building these relationships. You can do this now, so you can, go through your um, contacts on your phone book or in your digital phone book, whatever it is. Or a lot of times there's these regional board of realtor meetings, and so you can go to those for your local area. And a lot of times they're sponsored by like one of these professionals, and so you can set up a lunch with them or set up some time to shadow them, so you can understand what they do. And so when you're talking to your seller, you can explain to them why that person's important, what they can expect from them, what questions they can ask them. Because the more you do that, the more you educate your client. Not only is it going to make them a better um, real estate investor for the long run, so benefiting your client, but it's also going to benefit you, because your client is going to be coming to you asking questions about absolutely everything. And every time you have to, you're kind of like the middleman, like, hey, title officer, client's asking about um, when the deed will be signed, or um, can they sign it with a power of attorney, all that stuff. And so instead of you being the middleman, they'll know, like, oh hey, yeah, my agent said if I have questions about title, I call the title officer. And so they call them instead, and shorten the communication, and save you time because you're not having to relay messages back and forth. Any questions? All righty. Anybody in Florida? I don't think anybody in here is in Florida, huh? Nope. Things about to get pretty crazy over there. If you know of anybody, pray for them and see if you can help them out in any way. There's a hurricane hitting on Wednesday. That's all I've got for today. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes in case anybody has any saved rounds. Otherwise, have an amazing week. Aloha.
Thanks, sir.